Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into a deeply profound, grimdark fable that is honestly going to completely rewire how you think about truth, fear, and human nature. Picture this. It's the gray hour just before dawn. A solitary sage stands at the mouth of his mountain cave. The mirror dream and the fire dream are braided together behind his eyes like two ropes twisted into a single noose. For 7 long years, he hasn't looked down at the valley below. But today, he finally looks, and what he sees, faint against the horizon, is a thin gray line of smoke, and it's not a cloud, it's ruin. We're dropping right into the middle of a massive psychological crisis here. Imagine an eerie, mocking reflection speaking directly to the sage from the very artifact he left behind. The demon asks him, "Look into the silver and tell me, what do you see?" The sage left his followers a profound gift. And somehow, over 7 years of silence, that gift has twisted into a terrifying, living nightmare that is now staring right back at him. Okay, let's dive into this massive contrast. Up on the mountain, we have mountain silence. The sage's mind is a peaceful pool. For 7 years, he simply assumed his detachment was a virtue. But down below, we have valley ruin, wildfire, metabolized fear. The crucial takeaway here is that the peace of the mountain is only actually wisdom if a man remembers every single morning to ask what his silence is costing the valley below. The exact moment he forgets to ask, his peace becomes a second corruption, just wearing the mask of virtue. To truly grasp what this monster is, we have to look through the lens of Nietzschean philology. This demon isn't, a literal beast hiding under a bed. It represents das Dämonische. It's an amoral, overwhelming force. Think of it as the unsublimated will to power, pure, raw energy that has been given a terrifying face simply because the followers never learned how to master it. It's raw potential that's been deeply corrupted by human fear. Now listen to the deep regret when the sage realizes what's happened. He says, "I gave you a mirror for self-overcoming, a guide for liberation." You can hear the heartbreak. His original philosophy was completely pure. It was meant to show each person their own unclaimed nobility. It was a tool for self-legislation, meant to completely free them. It was absolutely never meant to be a weapon. But the reflection snaps back with horrifying clarity. The demon just mocks him, saying, "It is the gift, matured." Think about how chilling that is. The demon isn't a foreign invader. It is simply the sage's own profound teaching, warped by the followers who received it. It's the exact reflection of what pure truth becomes when it's handed to people who fear the dark more than they love the light. And this brilliantly illustrates the actual mechanics of distortion. Let's trace how this rot happens step by step. First, you have the child representing the pure, innocent truth exactly as the sage intended it. Then it passes into the mirror, which is the disciple's mind. And finally, because of the sheer fear inside that mind, it emerges as the demon. It's truth mixed with fear. It's a step-by-step rotting of a pure idea as it passes through a terrified filter. We have to be crystal clear about where the blame actually lies here. The mirror isn't some cursed magical artifact. It is simply the interface of the disciple's mind. The corruption didn't live in the sage's truth itself. The broken truth happened entirely because of the false mirror of the recipients. The flaw was the interface between a liberating idea and a terrified mind. Section 1. Truth metabolized by fear, codifying cowardice. So how does this happen? It all starts with the anatomy of a massive psychological failure, the flinch. When the disciples looked into the mirror, they were completely terrified by the abyss of their own massive potential, their unclaimed nobility. So what did they do? They flinched. But instead of admitting they were terrified, they decided to build an entire false moral system around their weakness. They literally codified their cowardice as morality. And worst of all, they taught their children to call this flinching virtue. You call that flinching virtue and taught your children to do the same. You can just feel the dark, hungry energy of the demon in that statement. It's a devastating generational failure. By redefining their own fear as goodness, the villagers didn't just fail themselves. They locked their descendants into a psychological prison, entirely disconnected from their true potential. And naturally, this internal psychological failure inevitably bled out into physical ruin. The villagers literally built an idol of sacrifice. They took the sage's fire, which was originally meant for warming and forging, and they weaponized it. As the sage realizes, they have been burning down what they didn't have the courage to outbuild. They literally sacrificed their neighbors, and perversely, they called it discipline. What makes this tragedy so insanely insidious is its generational invisibility. In the sage's vision, a child carries the mirror, smiling and completely untouched, while the glass behind them reflects a mocking demon's leer. These children are walking, smiling proof that a philosophy left untended metabolizes. Because it happened so gently, over so many years, it requires a guilty eye, a founder's eye, to actually see the rot. This hits the sage like a physical blow. He looks at that smoke, and it dawns on him. A teaching that cannot survive contact with cowardice was never strength. It was only unweathered. His 7 years of detachment were not peace at all. They were a complete dereliction of duty. If his philosophy fell apart the very second it touched human fear, then his work wasn't finished. Actually, scratch that. It had barely even begun. Section 2. The Willed Descent. From Still Pool to Wildfire. Now, what's really interesting about this moment is the philology behind it. The sage's spirit instantly ignites. He turns his back on the cave. The term for his action here is descensus. In Latin, this means a going down, a willed, conscious descent. And notice that amor fati, a love of fate, is entirely absent here. He does not love what he is about to face. Not at all. He is simply driven by a fierce, undeniable intent to confront the monster his gift created. We're looking at a profound structural contrast here. We are comparing the villagers' passive decay, their unconscious, fearful downgoing, directly against the sage's willed descensus. It is a brilliant philosophical setup. They share identical geography, physically moving down into the same valley, but they represent entirely opposite metaphysics. One is a cowardly collapse, and the other is a conscious, fiery confrontation with reality. The sage makes his fierce resolution perfectly clear. He says, "I descend now not to offer comfort, but to shatter the false mirrors." He knows now that comfort was the exact poison that birthed this monster in the first place. He is walking straight into the smoke, house by house if he must, to name every single grudge that has learned to hide behind the shield of righteous fire. Which leaves us with a mirror turned directly back on ourselves. This fable isn't just about a fictional village, right? It's about the human mind. So the absolute crucial question you should take away from this explainer is this. What grudges are you hiding behind the mask of righteous discipline? Where in your life have you called a flinch of virtue? Take a hard look in the glass and ask yourself what it really reflects. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.